Aidan, tell me a story. Hey y'all, it's Aidan. Welcome to my podcast where I share my journey, the lessons I've learned, and the love that shapes my life. Today I want to take you on a heartfelt journey into the life of my mother, Mom Peggy. She was not just a mom, she was my guiding light, my confidant, and my biggest supporter. Though Mom Peggy was unable to have children of her own, I believe with all of my heart that I was sent to her by God. Our bond was something truly special. She embraced me as her child, nurturing me with love and wisdom. Mom Peggy taught me the meaning of unconditional love, showing me that family isn't just about biology. It's about the connections we build and the love we share. Every great story has a heartbeat, and the heartbeat of my story is my mother, Mom Peggy. And this segment is called The People That Made Me. And it's also fitting because I have all her little pictures around me right now because I'm doing a photo collage for her. You could catch that on TikTok. So I have been thinking about her a lot lately. The holidays and also just, she's my mom. And she's dead, so I miss her. More specifically about how much she's poured into me. Her time, her love, her creativity. And she wore so many hats. A nurse, a restaurant worker, a restaurant owner, a caretaker, a daughter. But to me, she was just Mom Peggy, the person who made everything feel possible. And I want to honor her today and every day because her story deserves to be told. Not just for me, but for anyone who's had someone like her in their life. A person who gave everything they could, even when they had so little. This episode is going to be a mixture of laughter, memories, reflection. I'll share some of the funniest moments we had together, like the time I became cheese stick boy at Edna's. And some of the most meaningful ones, like the last conversation we had before she passed away. I want to give you a full picture of who Mom Peggy was. Not just the things she did, but the heart and soul behind them. Mom Peggy's life wasn't always easy. She faced challenges head on, sometimes with strength and sometimes with tears. And if you saw the tears, you should be scared. But she always showed up with love and with generosity and with a spirit that inspired me to dream big and stay true to myself. My hope is that by sharing her story, you'll feel a little closer to the people in your own life who've shaped you. Because when we remember and celebrate the people we love, their impact never really leaves us. So let's start at the beginning with the woman who can truly do it all. From cleaning houses to running a family restaurant to caring for the elderly, Mom Peggy never stopped giving. And that's where her story begins. Before Mom Peggy became all the incredible things she was just a girl with a big heart and humble beginnings. Her childhood shaped everything about the woman she became. Mom Peggy grew up in a small town in Texas, part of a big family that didn't have much. She was an older child of 6, which meant she learned early on how to be independent, scrappy, and resourceful, especially when you're in a family of mostly boys. Her parents worked hard to keep the family afloat, but life wasn't always easy. She often told me stories of having to share everything, from clothes to toys to chores. But what stood out the most to me was how much love and resilience ran through her family despite those challenges. And the fact that she became a mother to her siblings when Grandma was out there just trying to get those bills paid. Her mom, my Grandma Mary, was a tough woman, strong-willed and incredibly resourceful. She worked hard as a cook and a housekeeper, and she passed that work ethic down to Mom Peggy. Mama P always admired Grandma's ability to create a warm and loving home, even when the money was tight. And those lessons stuck with her throughout her life. Mom Peggy didn't sugarcoat her past when she talked to me. She'd tell me about the times when money was so tight that they barely got by, or when family tensions ran high. But she didn't dwell on those moments. Instead, she used them as motivation to create a better life, especially for me. I think her ability to carry those hardships with grace is what made her such a powerful role model for me. And oftentimes I would fall asleep listening to her stories of her childhood and her past. And also I have some recordings of them too. If you want to hear them, let me know. Some of my favorites are when they had a pet cow who chased them around this tree in the back of their yard, or they had chickens for food, and one time her grandma a chicken and it still ran around chasing after her even though it did not have a head. Or the time when her siblings scared her with a mannequin head on a broomstick outside the window. There are so many countless stories that I remember from Mom Peggy's childhood that are just, I carry them with me for the rest of my life because Mom Peggy fills my heart with joy. Mom Peggy's childhood wasn't easy, but it gave her the grit and determination to take on anything. Everything she learned as a little girl helped shape how she lived her life and how she raised me. It's impossible to understand the woman she became without knowing where she came from. So Mom Peggy wasn't just one thing. She was everything. A nurse, a chef, a restaurant owner, a caretaker, a sister, a daughter, a mom. And somehow she made it all work while raising me, and often taking me along for the ride. Right out of high school, Mom Peggy became a cosmetologist, a job that let her tap into her creativity and her love of making people feel good. She didn't stay in that profession long, but it was a glimpse of who she was, someone who wanted to make others shine. I always think about how brave she must have been taking on such a skilled job at a young age, which is a much needed program that is still going on today, which my little sister actually went through the same program. Kind of cool. And I didn't know this about her until later in life, but it made so much sense because she had such an eye for detail and she loved helping people feel so confident. And it's no surprise to think that her first job was all about helping people because that sets up the foundation for her entire life. She eventually transitioned into nursing, working in a nursing home where she cared for elderly patients. This is where I got to see her tenderness and her sense of responsibility firsthand. I remember sleeping under her desk during some of her shifts, watching her work long hours to provide for us. What stood out to me wasn't just that she was working, it was how she worked. She treated every patient like family with so much care and respect and love. And it made me realize that no matter what job you do, you can always bring your heart into it. I'll never forget the way she bathed her own father, Grandpa Rieger, and changed his diaper in his final days. She did it with so much love and respect. Watching her in those moments taught me what it means to show up for someone completely, even in the hardest of circumstances. Her and Grandma Mary also had a cleaning business. I remember being so fascinated by how thorough she was, how much pride she took in her work. She'd scrub floors, polish furniture, do the laundry, and made sure everything was spotless. Not just because it was her job, but because she cared about making people's homes feel like home. I even got to tag along on some of those cleaning jobs, and she made sure it was fun for me. Sometimes we'd race to see who could finish their tasks the first, laugh over the quirks we'd find in people's homes. Even in the mundane, she found a way to bring joy. I have so many amazing stories from my time spent with Grandma Mary and Mom Peggy cleaning these houses. So many hours watching Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, I Love Lucy, Will and Grace, Green Acres. The list goes on. The Price is Right. The list goes on. And there were so many amazing clients that they had throughout that time. Miss Ruby, who had like this woodworking area in her house. She made mosaics and stained glass. And she always had a nice little sweet treat for me in her deep freezer. I don't remember her name, but she did not live far from Grandma Mary's house, and she would always have crafts ready for us. That's where I learned how to work with magnets. She always had extra magnets for some reason, but it was so much fun, and I really enjoyed that. And the biggest one of all, the Graham brothers. They lived on a big chunk of land in the deep country, and there was a long drive up to their little old house, which I still remember the smell of to this day. It smelled like dog and dirt and fabuloso, all mixed in one. It was Texas. And on the entrance of their property, they had an old tractor that just sat out there. Had been there so long, like the grass grew around it. But I remember this one particular Christmas, we were driving up and there was presents on there. Santa had came to the tractor. And obviously, I know the truth about Santa now, but that was so amazing to me as a kid. And that was, if that doesn't show how much of an impact Mom Peggy and Grandma Mary and I guess I had on these families, and how much love that they gave to them, which made them want to give it in return to us, was just so amazing. If that doesn't show who they are at their core, then what does? Mom Peggy also always told me that if you're going to do something, do it right. That's something I've carried with me in everything I do. From my acting to how I live my life. It wasn't just about cleaning. It was about putting pride into every single thing you do. She also worked in restaurants for years. Edna's was a huge part of my childhood. She worked there and I practically grew up in that kitchen. They called me Chew Stick Boy because I was always ordering them. And for you New Yorkers, yes, I mean mozzarella sticks. But I get it with a side of ranch. But I wasn't just hanging out there. She had me peeling potato, teaching me about hard work before I even realized it. Later, her and Grandma Mary opened their own restaurant called Our Place. It was like a dream come true for her. Even though it didn't last, it was a big inspiration for me. And one day, I hope to open up a restaurant here in New York called Our Place to honor them and keep their spirit alive. What stood out about Mom Peggy is how much she sacrificed for me. She wore so many hats just to make sure I had what I needed. She took me everywhere, to her job, to her projects, to church, and made it all work. Looking back, it's clear she was essentially a single mom. Even though Grandpa was there to provide financially, she handled all the day-to-day care, and she did it with so much love. There were tough moments too. One time, she and Grandpa got into a fight, and we left the house in a hurry. We ended up sitting in a church parking lot while she cried. That moment taught me so much about standing my ground, about prioritizing my own well-being, and about walking away when you need to, even when life was hard. She showed me the importance of self-respect. So whether she was cutting hair, nursing patients, scrubbing floors, or running a restaurant, Mom Peggy never stopped showing up for her family, for her work, and for me. She taught me that no matter how tough life gets, there's always room to give love and care. And that's the foundation of who she was, a provider in every sense of the word. I am editing right now and I forgot to add in this very important and crazy detail. So, Mom Peggy was also married to a man with schizophrenia. I don't know how I left that part out. But her marriage to a man with schizophrenia was one of the most difficult chapters of her life. His mental illness often brought unpredictability and fear into their home. There were terrifying moments, like the time that she woke up to find him standing over her with a sharp kitchen utensil. Okay. His expression was blank and unreadable. Or the day he threw a fork that pierced her arm. And had she not lifted her arm in time, it would have went straight to her eye. A vivid reminder of how quickly things could escalate. Despite these hardships, Mom Peggy's strength shone through. She navigated these moments with a resilience that defined so much of her character. While their relationship couldn't last, it left her with an unyielding sense of empathy and an ability to find love and forgiveness even in the hardest of circumstances. And she met Grandpa at a bar. Actually, the first time that she met him, she pulled a pew pew out on him. Crazy. Mom Peggy was a crazy woman. But Mom Peggy wasn't all work. She had this amazing creative side as well, which she passed down to me. From sewing to puzzles to cornhusk dolls to Christmas decorations, she showed me that creativity is more than just a skill. It's a way of life. Let's dive into that next. Mom Peggy didn't just raise me. She shaped me creatively. She showed me that art and imagination weren't just hobbies. They were ways to express love, find joy, and make life beautiful. One of my earliest memories of Mom Peggy is sitting at a dining table surrounded by art supplies that she had picked up just for us. She didn't just hand me paint and say, "Have fun." She sat down with me, guided me through whatever creative idea we had that day. She taught me how to sew when I was little. I still remember us working on that cheetah print blanket together. It was inspired by the Cheetah Girls, obviously. And to this day, this blanket is a daily reminder of her. And she wasn't just creative herself, she actively nurtured creativity in me. I remember making corn husk dolls one Christmas after she came to my school for a family project, and I loved it so much that she went out and bought all the supplies so we could do it at home. That year, our Christmas tree was covered entirely in corn husk dolls, and it was the most beautiful tree I've ever seen. It wasn't store-bought perfect. It was homemade magic. Another way she sparked creativity was through games and puzzles. Mom Peggy loved puzzles, and she passed that love on to me. We'd sit for hours putting them together side by side, lost in the quiet focus of it all with some country music on in the background. Games were also a huge part of our lives too. Whether it was board games, card games, or pickup sticks, she always made time for play. I realize now that those moments weren't just about the games themselves. They were about connection. She taught me how to have fun, think outside the box, and how to never take life too seriously. And Mama P wasn't just supportive, she was encouraging in a way that made me feel like I could try anything. She gave me room to experiment with arts, crafts, cooking, writing, you name it. I never felt judged or like I had to be perfect. If I wanted to try something new, she was the first one to say, "Let's do it." Even in small ways, she planted seeds of creativity everywhere. When I think about how I approach my acting career, or even content I create now, I see her influence. She taught me that creativity isn't just about making something, it's about putting a piece of yourself into it. And that's something I carry with me every day. She had a way of seeing the world that was both practical and imaginative. For her, creativity wasn't about escaping reality, it was about enhancing it. Whether it was through sewing, decorating the house, or even in the way she cooked and cleaned, she found ways to bring beauty and thoughtfulness into everything she touched. Her creative spirit is the reason I believe in dreaming big. Every time I create something, whether it's a TikTok video or a character in the play, I feel her influence. She made me believe in the power of storytelling, in the beauty of putting a little piece of yourself into everything you do. Even now, I found myself drawn to creative projects that remind me of her. Things that are handmade, heartfelt, and a little bit quirky. That's how I honor her legacy. By letting her creativity flow through me. By seeing the world through her lens. Mom Peggy didn't just teach me how to be creative. She taught me why it matters. She showed me that creativity is about more than making things. It's about building connections, expressing love, and leaving your mark on the world. Every time I pick up a pen, step on stage, share a story, I feel her with me, cheering me on. Of course, creativity wasn't the only thing Mom Peggy gave me. She also gave me a safe space to figure out who I am. In our next segment, I will be sharing the story of coming out to her and how she handled it with the same love and care she showed in every part of her life. Coming out to Mom Peggy felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure of what was below, but knowing I had to jump. Mom Peggy was a safety net I never knew I needed. It was a conversation I'd been dreading for years, but knew that it was necessary. I came out to a family friend and I asked that family friend not to tell Mom Peggy, but she did, and it was the best decision ever. Mom Peggy called me into the kitchen one day and she said, "So?" And I told her that I was gay. I was expecting a moment of silence or confusion, and she looked at me with a mix of love and understanding. "You know, Aidan," she said, "I've known since you were 2. And I wasn't stunned. I mean, I loved purses and glitter, and I had a lisp. And the amount of times that she had to come to school to save me from the bullies who called me gay, I mean, it was a given. It was as if she had seen through the years of my struggles, my fears, and my attempts to hide. Her openness made me feel seen in a way that I had never experienced before. But then a sadness crept in. Shortly after I came out, I came home one day to find her in tears. She was sad because, and it's kind of funny looking back on it now, but she was worried that a part of the reason I was gay was because of her body. And she said, "Not all women look like this." My heart sank. In that moment, I had to reassure her that her appearance had nothing to do with my identity. I said, "Mom, you're beautiful, and your body doesn't define what it means to be a woman. It's who you are inside that matters most." It was hard to see her struggle with that, especially knowing that her weight had always been a big source of pain for her. Despite eating healthier than anyone else in our family, she battled issues that made it difficult for her to maintain a healthy weight. And I know it was either a metabolism or a thyroid issue. I just don't remember which one. As I grew up, I watched Mom Peggy face the challenges of living with obesity. It was heartbreaking to see her struggle with her body, knowing how hard she tried. I remember getting upset when people would stare at her or when kids pointed and laughed. I would get mad at them, but she always tried to help me understand, saying, "They're young, Aidan. They don't know that it's rude. They're just kids being kids." But it hurt to see her facing that kind of judgment. One day she tripped over her flip-flops and fell. My grandpa, who struggled with his own issues, yelled at her instead of helping. In that moment, I felt a surge of anger. I was just this husky little 15-year-old boy, but I gathered all my strength and I pulled her up off the ground. "You're my Superman," she called me afterwards. And in that moment, I felt like I could conquer the world. Growing up with Mom Peggy taught me to see beauty differently. She was a big woman, and I came to understand that big bodies are beautiful. I am so grateful for that perspective because it helped shape my views on self-acceptance and body positivity. I learned how to celebrate diverse beauty standards, appreciating all shapes and sizes. And as she got older, her body began to weigh her down, both physically and emotionally. It was painful to watch her health decline, knowing that her struggle stemmed from the same beautiful body that I adored. I saw how her weight impacted her joints and her overall well-being, and it broke my heart to witness that pain. But despite those challenges, I knew I wouldn't trade her for anyone else because she taught me the value of love, compassion, and the importance of being true to oneself. Those moments of vulnerability were bittersweet. It made me realize that even our strongest moments can come with insecurities. Mom Peggy had this incredible ability to love fiercely, yet she was also grappling with her own self-worth. I learned from her how important it is to have conversations about self-acceptance and how we perceive ourselves versus how others perceive us. It was eye-opening to see my mom so vulnerable. It reminded me that we all have our struggles, regardless of how strong we appear on the outside. Her honesty opened a door for me to share my own feelings, and in doing so, we deepened our bond. Our conversations after that became more profound. We discussed not just my identity, but her fears and her insecurities as well. She wanted me to feel safe and supported, and in return, I wanted to give her the same comfort. I promised her that I'd always be open with her about my feelings and my experiences, and she did the same. In many ways, coming out to her wasn't just about me revealing my sexuality. It was about building a foundation of trust and honesty in our relationship. It was a reminder that love transcends everything, even our own individual struggles. Mom Peggy showed me that being vulnerable with each other was a gift. It allowed us to share our authentic selves, and it helped us understand each other on a deeper level. Those conversations were not just about acceptance. They were about love, connection, and mutual respect. She taught me that it's okay to be different and that love doesn't come with conditions. My identity was just another piece of the beautiful puzzle that was our relationship. She didn't have to say it, but I knew that I'd always be her son, no matter who I loved. Coming out to Mom Peggy was one of the most significant moments in my life. It brought us closer, reminding me of the strength of our bond and the beautiful unconditional love. In my journey of self-acceptance, I had the most incredible ally cheering me on every step of the way. As our relationship grew stronger, we faced some of the hardest moments together. In this next segment, I'll share the bittersweet memories of the last conversation we had and how they shaped my understanding of love and loss. Though she's no longer physically here, I carry Mom Peggy's love and wisdom with me every day. It's like she's became a part of me, guiding me through life's challenges and celebrating my victories. As I look back on my journey with Mom Peggy, I realize that it was filled with profound lessons and unforgettable moments, from her tireless work ethic as everything to her struggles with her body. Each expression shaped my understanding of love, acceptance, and resilience. Mom Peggy's life was a testimony to the strength of a woman who faced challenges head on and taught me the importance of embracing every part of myself. Our relationship showed me that vulnerability is strength, whether it was during our heartfelt conversations or the moments of laughter we shared. Every interaction taught me how important it is to connect deeply with the people we love. One of the most poignant moments came during our last conversation. It was December 2020, and I had just returned home for Christmas break. Mom Peggy, who had been bedridden at this point, sat me down and told me about her congestive heart failure. I was overwhelmed, and I left her room. Gee, Mom, thanks. What a great conversation. And I was consumed with sadness. Later that night, I was reading the Bible and begging God and asking God, what do I do? And He told me to go to her room. I was expecting them to be asleep, but she was up watching TV. And I walked in and I told her, I said, Mom, I'm sad. And she looked up at me and she chuckled a little bit and she was like, huh, really? And I sat down and I told her how I don't want to do this without her. I want her here. And she told me how she couldn't necessarily be here. I wanted her to see my husband. I wanted her to see my career. I wanted her to see the house that I was going to buy for her and Grandpa. And in that moment, she reassured me with her warmth and love, saying, I can't be there physically, but I'll always be right here, pointing to her heart and then to mine. That conversation gave me the closure I needed and showed me the depth of her love, even as she faced her own death. Mom Peggy's unconditional love and acceptance laid the foundation for my own self-acceptance. Her ability to see beauty in herself despite the challenges she faced inspired me to embrace my own identity with pride. She taught me that it's okay to be different and that our worth is not defined by societal standards. Because of her, I understand that love knows no bounds. It's about the heart and the soul, not about appearance. As I navigate my life without her physical presence, I strive to carry her legacy forward. I want to honor her memory by living authentically, supporting others in their journeys of self-acceptance, and spreading the love she embodied so effortlessly. I remember her words so often, and they serve as a guiding light, reminding me to cherish each moment and embrace life's challenges with grace. Though Mom Peggy is no longer with me, I feel her spirit in everything I do. I often imagine her cheering me on from the sidelines as she always did. As I think about my future, my dreams of meeting my husband, starting a family, and creating a life filled with love and laughter, I know she'll always be part of that journey. In closing, I want to express my deepest gratitude for the time I had with Mom Peggy. She was not only my mother, she was my confidant, my cheerleader, and my friend. Our story together is one of love, resilience, and acceptance. A reminder that even in the face of adversity, we can find beauty in our relationships and strength in our connections. As I reflect on my journey with her, I remember a poem that touched me deeply after her passing. I have it right here. This is the original copy that I got laminated. I was going through an old vacuum cleaner box full of paperwork from the late 90s to early 2000s, and I, for some reason, had to go through every single piece. And I found this poem that she typed, typewriter style. She typed it on a typewriter to me. And I will read that for you at a different time, but I do want to read the last little stanza to you. I know that I am blessed and I got my gift from God. I don't like it that I have to share you. I want you all for myself, but I know that all of God's greatest creations were meant for everyone to see. So I will share and be glad, for you have changed me into a better person. And yes, even a mom. I love you, Mom Peggy. I love you too, Mom Peggy. I encourage you all to reflect on the relationships that shaped you. Consider how vulnerability can strengthen your connections with loved ones and how acceptance can lead to a more fulfilling life. Let's celebrate those we love, honor their lessons, and carry their legacies with us every step of the way. Join me next time as I continue to share stories from my life, focusing on the moments that shaped who I am today and lessons learned along the way. Thank you so much for joining me on this heartfelt journey through the life of my mom, Mom Peggy. If you found inspiration in her story, please take a moment to like, follow, and share this podcast with friends and family. Your support means the world to me and helps spread her message of love and resilience. If you have your own stories or experiences that resonate with what we talked about today, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me on social media or leave a little comment. And remember, we're all in this together, and your voice matters. Until next time, keep shining your light.